Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. I hope you can see the both Pali and the English translation.
Yes, Bhante.
Okay,
we
great.
can see.
Yeah, fine. So today actually I thought of starting a new sutta, and certain parts of this sutta we probably have discussed time to time while we are discussing various other suttas. But I thought of taking this sutta alone because it's quite interesting and again fairly deep. So it is available in the Sutta Nipata. As you all know, Sutta Nipata is one of the extremely interesting and fairly deep teaching of the Buddha available or included into the Khuddaka Nikaya. And interesting thing in this Sutta Nipata is that it believed to be one of the foremost books related to the early Buddhist teachings. And most of the suttas are fairly short, fairly concise, and many of them are with the say verses. Now this Tuvataka Sutta is entirely with verses. And among various categories in the Sutta Nipata, Attaka Vagga and Parayana Vagga are further important because Buddha delivered them to a fairly high calibered people. And again, interestingly, certain suttas are kind of a discussion between a mind-made Buddha and the real Buddha. Now that's also an interesting phenomena where many deities actually gathered to pay respect to the Buddha and to listen to Dhamma, and those are recorded in another sutta called Mahasamaya Sutta. And at that time Buddha wanted to explain certain Dhamma, and nobody seems capable of asking those questions. So what he did was to prepare a mind-made Buddha. So he prepared another Buddha. So a kind of a mind-made, mind-created Buddha, and he is actually asking the questions according to the audience. Now the preference of the audience. Now the audience, actually the Buddha do a kind of a surveillance of the audience, and he understand, okay, these are the defilements, these are the latent tendencies currently persisting in these minds, and these are the devas who are into a particular direction. Their minds are inclined towards a certain direction. So after seeing this kind of situation, so this mind-made Buddha asks questions so that it is more suitable for that particular audience. And then the real Buddha giving the answers. Now this Tuvataka Sutta is something like that. A mind-made Buddha is asking a question, and then Buddha is explaining the answer. Because sometimes to ask a very interesting question, you need a fair amount of understanding, a very deep foresight. Again, you have to be very quick, and again very sharp to ask the right question at the right time. So here Buddha is doing the whole thing. So he prepared the Buddha and he is asking the question based on the audience, their caliber, their understanding, the capacity to understand, and now the Buddha himself is answering them. Now the first verse, Pucchamitang adicca bandung vivekang santi padancha mahesi katang diswa nibbati bhikkhu anupadiyano lokasmin kinchi. Now Adicca Bandhu, the kinsman of the sun. Now this is an epithet used for the Buddha where his clan is called Gautama, and that particular clan has a certain relationship with the sun. So therefore, Buddha is sometimes known as Adicca Bandhu, the kingsman related to the sun, the kingsman of the sun. Adicca Bandhu is a name given to the Buddha. Pucchamitang Adicca Bandhu Vivekang Santipadancha Mahesi. Now, I am asking from the great Rishi, Mahesi, great Rishi, who is the kingsman of the sun and who is more inclined towards the Viveka, to the seclusion and the state of peace, Santipada. So, the Buddha is more into the Viveka, to the peace, to the seclusion, and so a kind of a admiration of those qualities are included into the question. And I am asking the question from this Buddha. Katang diswa nibbati bhikkhu anupadiyano lokasmin kinchi. How, having seen, does a bhikkhu attain nibbana, not clinging to anything in the world? Now you can see the question is directly about nibbana. There is no any other waverings, there is no any other description, just targeting nibbana and what one needs to see, to realize in order to attain nibbana. And without clinging to anything in the world, anupadiyano, lokasmin. So in this world there are very interesting things, sights, sounds, smells, taste, tangibles, but you are not attached to anything. Mind is entirely free, completely independent, completely at the non-grasping state. So how to achieve that? Now the very first answer is related to Papancha. Now probably you can remember that we just finished the Yavakalapi Sutta. There we have spent fair amount of time explaining the Papancha, explaining conceptual proliferation. Now here you can see the very first answer is related to Papancha. Moolam Papancha Sankhaya Manta Asmiti Sabbhang Uparunde Yakachi Tanha Ajjattang Tasang Vinaya Sada Sato Sikhe. The whole practice is very concisely included in this particular verse. Moolam Papancha Sankhaya Manta Asmiti Sabbhang Uparunde. Now, for the Papancha Sankha, there is a particular root, there is a particular cause, and that particular cause one has completely stopped, or one has completely prevented using wisdom, manta. So what is the root? So that is the asmiti, asmimana, the conceit I am. Now you can see for the whole different directions of the Papancha. Now we understood various directions, various possibilities of Papancha while we are discussing Yavakalapi Sutta. One direction is the Tanha, where craving based or craving triggered kind of Papancha are there, conceptual proliferations are there. On the other hand, Mana related, conceit related Prapancha are there, conceptual proliferations are there when we are sort of comparing ourselves with another person, when we are comparing two situations, when we are comparing two objects. So likewise, due to this comparison to a measurement, we start thinking too much and it can lead to an obsession. And then Ditti Papancha, where wrong views can be another cause of unnecessary kind of continuous thinking. Now these are the three main streams of Papancha, but there are other possibilities that the mind can think, but these are the main streams we can see. And interestingly, all these three main streams are very much like rooted based on the asmimana, what we call the sense of I am, the sense of I. Now we all, as we discussed, brought up in a way that we are very much like implanted with an understanding that there is a person here, there is a being here, and we are giving a name. I am here, I am talking, you are listening. So likewise, this is the mundane way of how we want to communicate, and each individual of us thinking there is a self, there I am here. So that is a very, very rooted type of a misunderstanding in a way. But that is what we were taught from the beginning. When we are born to this world, our parents have introduced that there is a person. So I am a baby, I am the young guy, and then I am given a name, and they are loving me, they are kind of playing with me. So I am slowly growing as an individual. And then as we are moving forward, now I get into the kindergarten, then get into the school and learning, and friends are talking to me, teachers are talking to me, and all that are affirming that there is a self, there is a being. I am an individual, I am here, I am so and so. And as we are further growing, so this self-affirmation happens further and further, and we become someone very important, and we want to highlight ourselves, we want to emphasize our presence. So likewise, this I, the sense of I, growing stronger and stronger. And that actually is the root cause for many different kinds of thinking. So this I needs to be satisfied. The needs of the I has to be fulfilled. Because I is a very fragile nature, and again this I has to be sustained. So it may be various desires. So various desires are to be fulfilled. So the tanha papancha is now growing because this I, this person, this personality is lacking always something. It always feels something lacking. I am not a perfect person. I need something. When I am comparing myself with another person, okay, he is much better than me. So I need something to fulfill, to come at least closer to him. So now I desire so many things in order to satisfy my needs. So when there is a person, when there is a personality, when there is I, so always there is something lacking, always there is something missing. So in order to fill that gap, we keep on thinking, keep on trying hard, and that require fair amount of thinking. Tanha papancha is basically to fulfill the desires of this I, desire of this person. And then on the other hand, the mana. So when I is here, when there is a person, natural tendency of the mind is to compare myself with another person. I am also an individual, you are also another individual. How am I doing compared to you? Am I doing better, or am I sort of equal, or am I worse? So a kind of basic comparison. These are very fundamental comparisons naturally happening in the mind, and that further leads to thinking. So mana papancha is naturally arising because I perceive myself as an individual, as a being. So myself tends to compare with another person, another self. So likewise, this conceit related papancha also growing. On the other hand, ditti. In one sense, one may have sakkaya ditti. Considering this whole body is a person, these different types of feelings are a person, an individual, and various different kinds of perceptions are a person, and thinking also indicates a person, presence of a person, and there is a thinker. And on the other hand, when seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, tasting, thinking, and there is an observer, there is a person. So basically, our wrong understanding is that there is a person. So based on that wrong understanding, wrong view, again we start thinking. Now you can see how true it is when you are closely examining this situation. The sense of I becomes one of the very root cause of different kinds of craving, different kinds of proliferations. So Buddha answers by reflection, he should stop the conceit I am, the entire root of concepts due to proliferation. So more we think, more we proliferate, the sense of I am can be further increased, further become we become captivated to that sort of a feeling. We affirming that sense of I by thinking further and further. Now the last two words, Yakachi tanha ajjattang tasang vinaya sada sato sikkhe. Now there is certain craving internally. There are internal cravings, and one should train mindfully. One should sort of restrain mindfully for their removal. Tasang vinaya, sada means every time. Sato, every time you have to be mindful. And sikkhe, you need to train yourself. Now this is a kind of a path Buddha is showing us, a kind of a training, because this is not just a one-day task. Because there are many different kinds of tendencies available in the mind, and they are again and again promoting some sort of desires. Time to time, as we are seeing different things through the eyes, there may be desires triggered. As we are hearing different kinds of sounds, there could be various desires triggered by that. Because the tendencies are there, the potential is there in the mind, and when sight, sound, smells, taste, tangibles and thoughts, mental objects come into interaction with the corresponding sense organ, so that can stimulate thinking, and that thinking can further stimulate desires. So now the desires are popping up, they are creeping out, they start growing. Now what Buddha is showing here is that you need to take care of. So don't just try to fulfill these desires, don't just try to pacify or satisfy these desires. That's becoming a kind of an endless job, endless task. Rather, how to let go of these desires. Very much like the second noble truth. So as you all heard, the second noble truth, Buddha says, okay, the cause of suffering is the desire, the tanha, craving. And tanha has to be let go of. Dukkha samudayang ariya saccang pahatabbang. One has to abandon the craving. This is quite easy to say than do. Now, as you all know, when there is a desire, the immediate reaction is to fulfill it. Because there is a little burning without fulfilling it, so we quickly want to fulfill that desire. But one needs to be mindful to trace that desire, to recognize that desire. And once that is being recognized, rather than fulfilling, you need to abandon it. You need to let go of it. This is a tedious task in a way. I mean, this is a kind of a battle between the inner needs or inner kind of asks and how to tackle it in a mindful way. It is also not a kind of a suppression. That's also an interesting discussion. Are we suppressing the desires? So this is not a kind of a suppression. Rather, it's a mindful acceptance of a desire without being a victim of that desire. So we allow that desire to happen, and we are able to step back and look at it without promoting it, without feeding it, and fully accepting it, fully acknowledging it. At the same time, not being a victim of it, not simply trying to fulfill it, rather recognizing desire as desire. tanha as tanha. Saragan chittan tipajanati. Now different kinds of desires. It may be kama tanha. It may be a sensual desire. You want to see something, you want to hear something, smell, taste, or have a soft touch, whatever. So that is a kama tanha. On the other hand, there are bhava tanha. Again and again, I want to attain something. I want to become someone. There are certain inner psychological needs, and I want to attain that. I want to fulfill that and live in that state. Driven by the bhava tanha. Driven by a kind of a becoming process. Rather than feeling completely satisfied right now, I want to change my behavior, or I want to change my appearance, I want to change my present situation and attain something. Become someone special. This is another kind of a rooted desire, what we call as the bhava tanha. So that bhava tanha again and again take us to a different world. So we lose mindfulness and we are being taken to a mind-made world, a fantasy world. And often people are living in these fantasies. Again and again during the day, we are getting to a kind of a fallacy, kind of a fantasy, and simply living there, enjoying that, deprived from the present moment. So that is particularly based from this bhava tanha. So bhava tanha deprives us from the present moment. It loses the present moment. It completely destroys mindfulness. Once we establish mindfulness, we have the capacity to return to the basics, return to the fundamental knowing, the presence of the mind, to the present moment, depending on our capacity. If our mindfulness is pretty sharp and wisdom is also there, and if we know how to return and we have practiced, then probably we can quickly come back, revert back to the sort of the truthful nature. But otherwise, one fantasy to another fantasy, going from one to the other. So that is how people are living, that mind-made fantasies are sort of taken by the mind one after the other, never coming to the present moment, never appreciating the present moment. For them, the present moment is very boring or fearful or whatever. So again and again, so they are living in a mind-made world. So rather than allowing that, how one can come back, return back to the mindfulness, to the basic presence of the mind. So in order to do that, you have to fight against this bhava tanha. And then vibhava tanha. I want to get rid of something. Now I is there. There's a presence of I, the sense of I. So I hate the current moment. I hate the present moment. I hate the present situation. Or I hate someone. I want to get rid of him. I want to get rid of that particular situation. So this kind of a aversive state in the mind. This is another type of a desire. So I want to get rid of a particular situation. Now, whenever such desire happens, can we able to sort of recognize it, and rather than being frustrated by that, rather than feeding that, can we be a little patient with it, simply accept it, and without being a victim of it, can we able to simply allow it to fade away? Now these are entirely practice related kind of a situation. So one has to be fairly mindful in order to recognize these three types of desires: kama tanha, bhava tanha and vibhava tanha. And if you are able to recognize these desires, so the practice is to be fully with it, be fully recognize it, accept it, acknowledge it, don't be a victim to it, let it go. And if you are able to do that, then slowly those desires become weaker and weaker. Janato passato asavanam khayam vadami. So you are seeing it, you are recognizing it, you see this tendency. Probably you notice now it is arising due to certain reason, and you are able to step back rather than being a victim of it, rather than trying to fulfill it. And as a result of that, so this particular desire becomes sort of redundant, doesn't have much support coming from the mind. So as a result of that, slowly it starts fading away. Now this has to be an ongoing practice. So yakachi tanha jattang tasang vinaya sada sato sikkhe. So whenever there are internal cravings arising, in order to abandon them, one is mindfully training oneself every time. And then Buddha further mentioned, Yankinchi dhamma abhinya ajjattang athavapi bahidda natena thanang kubbeta nahisa nibbhuti satang vutta. Whatever one might know, Yankinchi dhamma abhinya ajjattang athavapi bahidda, whether internally or externally, natena thamang kubbeta. So basically means one is not using that knowledge to obstinate oneself. Nahi sa nibbhuti satang vutta. And the wise person, the Buddha, never say, and by simply getting to a kind of an obstination is the kind of the achievement. Now this is also a very kind of a controversial kind of a point. Now typically when there is I, when there is a person, when there is an individual, what we constantly do is to highlight that person. So I want to be the first, I want to be the best. So always want to highlight that particular person, because there is a psychological need to fulfill in that individual. That individual is a particular person. So this particular person is a very fragile entity. So keep on, we have to pump certain energy to maintain that personality. It's always kind of in a imperfection. This personality is always imperfect. So we are trying hard to make it perfect. We are trying hard to highlight it. We are trying hard to compete with the other personalities and to highlight this personality, myself. So this is what we consider as our achievement in a way. So when we achieve that, when we fulfill that, probably we feel satisfied. We feel highlighted, we feel sort of admired, we feel that I was able to defeat the others, and so I feel satisfied. So this I being fed, I being highlighted, the self being further sort of motivated, and the personality being somewhat uplifted. So this is what we are constantly trying to do. But what Buddha mentioned here is quite controversial. Natena tamang kubbeta nahisa nibbhuti satang vutta. Now Buddha particularly mentioned, now you may have different kinds of skills. You may know already certain things. You may already acquired certain knowledge. It may be about yourself, it may be about the outside world, and different kinds of knowledge are there. And you may already have acquired fair amount of knowledge, but you are not using that knowledge to basically highlight to yourself. Now we acquire knowledge, we acquire education in order to highlight us. But here Buddha say, so don't do that. It is not the problem of the education, it is not the problem of the knowledge, but are we using the knowledge or the education to highlight a person, highlight an individual, suppress another individual, compare with another individual? Now, all these things are very high, subtle defilements operating in our mind, as we already discussed. When there is a kind of a conceit, a tendency to conceit, we are in a constant comparison. We are comparing ourselves with another person, and again we want to win the race. Again and again we are in a kind of a competition. Never resting, because I feel unfulfilled. I feel something missing compared to the other person. So I am in a constant competition to win the race, to come to the first, to become the best. And I am using knowledge also to do that. So I acquire a fair amount of knowledge, and now I am saying, okay, I am knowledgeable than the other person. I am wiser than the other person. So that is one way of feeding the self, feeding the ego. But here Buddha mentioned, whatever one might know, whether internally or externally, one should not be obstinate on that account, for that is not called quenching by the good. Because the good person, the Buddha, don't say that the using knowledge, either internally or externally, to simply highlight oneself is the quenching, is the Nibbana. So Nibbana is not that sort of a self-satisfied or satisfying the self. Nibbana is a kind of penetrating the self-view. So the radical teaching of the Buddha is the non-self. So rather than trying to satisfy an existing self and affirming that self, highlighting that self, so Buddha's teaching going against that, telling, okay, there is no self. The self is a kind of an illusion. It's a mind-made illusion. And it's a very, very radical teaching given by the Buddha, how to, rather than promote this self-view, how to penetrate it. Whenever there is a desire arising, are we able to catch that sense of I? How that desire is trying to make a self. How that particular desire is trying to fulfill a need of a self, need of an individual, and fulfilling a kind of a personality trait. Now likewise, the very, very subtle practice actually, it's very difficult for one to recommend for a beginner, but as one is growing in the practice, particularly in Vipassana, so one may be looking at very subtle tendencies in the mind. Say for example, one has practiced Satipatthana for a considerable period of time, and often now he may be able to keep the mind fairly relaxed, calm, and free from any gross grasping, and basically he is enjoying certain kind of a peace in the mind, a certain relaxation of the mind, because now he is able to enjoy a certain kind of a non-grasping state. If one has achieved such kind of a at least temporary freedom, there's a quite possibility to recognize these kind of very subtle defilements. These are very, very subtle defilements. Actually, we are talking here the ones causing the mana, the conceit. Conceit is one of the very subtle defilement continuously operating in the mind. Very difficult to catch it. That's why in Rahula Sutta, Buddha is recommending Animittancha bhavehi mana anusaya mujjaha. So one has to develop the signless state, then that would be easier for one to understand this conceit, I am, the comparison. Because the signless state gives us a fairly clear state of mind. So it familiarizes the mind or introduces the mind into a fairly pure, completely clean state of mind. So one is, if one is familiar to such a state, then whenever there is a comparison arising, one may be able to trace it quickly. But otherwise what happens is, one easily become a prey of that desire. One easily become a prey of that conceit, and he start behaving according to that conceit. But here we can see one is not promoting a self even using the knowledge. And promoting a self is not the Nibbana. Promoting the self is not the sort of the quenching that Buddha is talking. Nahisa Nibbuti Satang Utta. It is not the Nibbana. Now quenching the self, the need of the self, promoting the self-view is not the Nibbana that Buddha is talking. He is penetrating the self-view and he is taking us to the teaching of the non-self. Now I think this is enough for today. I like to conclude the Sutta teaching here, and now I like to open the session for questions.
Thank you, Bante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay, nobody want to talk based on the knowledge, it seems.
I guess, Bante, I have a question. So,
Okay.
Today's Sutta teaching teaches us how to not just go with our desires, but there are times in which, the desires are kind of what is required. So how do we kind of distinguish that this is actually a productive desire and this is helpful versus this is not? Is it just as we are using that mindfulness practice that you shared and just watching the desire and lessening the desire, and then once we get to, I guess, a stable mind that's not controlled by desire, then we use our wisdom to make the discernment? Or is there other means to go about that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Actually, even in Dhamma, it is mentioned that the motivation coming through desire, as you mentioned. So probably you have heard about the Chanda Iddipada. So Chanda Iddipada is where the one is motivated by the desire to spiritually grow. Because one has a certain desire to be free from samsara, to attain sotapanna, say to develop certain spiritual skill. So all that also kind of motivated by a kind of a desire. So therefore, as you quite correctly mentioned, so desire is a motivation factor. Now it can be used spiritually as well as for the mundane purposes. Now, say for example, when a little kid is born, as he is growing, so his parents or teachers are sort of cultivating certain, planting certain desire in his mind. Son, you got to be a good citizen. Son, you got to be a doctor. Son, you got to be a scientist, an engineer. So likewise, so we are kind of planting a desire in his mind, an ambition in his mind. Now that ambition causes him to drive further, and that is also actually a very important, very valid type of motivation. And in the spiritual side also the same thing. Now one is driven by a kind of a spiritual desire. So I want to attain Sotapanna. So many people are motivated by that. So that is necessary. Then only we start striving. Then only we start getting up early and get into the practice. And so you need such kind of a driving force. So therefore we can see a kind of a healthy self that one is promoting even using that. So I want to become a good person. I want to become a Sotapanna. I want to become a good individual, Sappurisa. So that is in a way promoting a self and governed by the desire. So it has certain purpose, it has certain kind of a valid reason, and there is no argument about it. And in certain sutta, what you call as the Bhikkhunupassaya Sutta, Venerable Ananda mentioned it as tanhang nissaya tanha pahatabbu. So you are using the chanda, you are using the tanha, you are using the craving, but ultimate goal is to uproot craving. But here still we haven't come to that. So still we are in the middle. We are being driven by the desire. We are motivated by the desire. But as we are growing further and further, as we are maturing further and further, so the practice has to divert to a different direction. At first, so we are driving ourselves. At first we are striving a lot. At first we are motivating us. At first we are more into the doing part. Yeah, we are doing. I am meditating. I am practicing. I am learning. I am practicing jhana. I am practicing vipassana. So I am there and I am practicing, and you are motivating yourself and you are doing. You are doing meditation. But later, your practice has to turn to a different direction as you are fairly calming down the mind, relaxing the mind, free the mind from grasping. Now it is very much like more to the relaxation, more to not doing, just being. Just be. Don't promote anything, don't desire anything, don't have say much of an intentional motivation. Just allow the mind to be at peace. It is already now introduced to the non-grasping state. You have touched the non-grasping state. You have tasted the non-grasping state. Just try to dwell there. Just try to quench there. Just try to enjoy that inner silence without doing anything. So, not doing, rather just being. Just enjoying that mere presence. Just enjoying that complete calmness. Enjoying that complete inner stillness. So, at that time we have to say, okay, now you are abandoning the desire. Completely letting go of the desire. And there actually what one has to do is to recognize how again the I-making, mind-making and the conceit I am is happening while dwelling in that emptiness. And you are supposed to dwell in the emptiness, but due to the latent tendencies, there is a possibility again for the I-making to happen. Again the sense of I to arise. Again a kind of a desire to arise, and that you need to trace, that you need to figure out. And once you figure it out, you have to slowly let it go. You acknowledge it, you recognize it, you step back from it, don't feed it, don't be a victim to it, just let it go. So now at this level, actually what Buddha mentioned is quite valid, because you are fairly matured and you have arrived that equilibrium of the mind, that equipoise of the mind. And while being there, now you can fulfill the Buddha's teaching, because now you are entirely letting go of the desire. It is not still there is a continuation of the practice, but it is more inclined towards the seclusion, more inclined towards the letting go, and more inclined towards dispassion. Rather than passion, it is more inclined towards dispassion. Viraganisitang, Viveganisitang, Viraganisitang, Nirodhanisitang, Vassagga Parinami. So one is continuing one's path, further associating the kind of a seclusion, further associating a dispassion, further associating the cessation, and further association the fulfillment. Fulfillment in the sense Vassagga Parinaming. So basically ending up always in the freedom, freeing the mind, always freeing the mind, not grasping, rather freeing the mind. So the whole practice is aimed at non-grasping, aimed at complete freedom. So therefore at this stage actually is entirely different from the very previous stage where you are more governed by the motivation, more governed by the doing syndrome. But here you are more into the just being, just relaxing, just calming, just let things go, let things happen.
Thank you, Bante, Thero.
Yeah.
And I'd like to invite the next user. Can you state your name? Zoom user?
Yes, this is Drake Ward from Oregon.
Right.
Well, thank you, Bante. That was a beautiful explanation. I wanted to follow up on that same theme of, you mentioned this kind of burning that might take place when we recognize a desire and the I-making, and we accept it, but we don't feed it by like seeking to fulfill that desire, and that being willing to experience some kind of burning that would be present until it disappears. It's not my car. So I guess my question is, I didn't recognize that. I haven't been very good at, I see desire, but I always end up trying to fulfill my desire. I'm just so weak at not.
Mm-hmm.
But I was kind of encouraged by your, pointing out there will be a burning, but if you gain confidence, you can experience that burning. It goes away, and then there's a freedom on the other side of it. And so I was just wondering if you could kind of explain that process a little bit more, so I could get kind of to try it out, like to learn that it's true, and I can make progress.
Yeah. Okay. So actually, as you said, it is not an easy task, because at first our desires are very strong, and as we are fulfilling the desire, there is a kind of a thrill, there is a kind of an enjoyment. So that is why it is very difficult to abandon the desire, because the fulfillment of the desire is promoting some kind of a satisfaction, promoting kind of a admiration of the self, and again giving some enjoyment. Due to these different reasons, it's very difficult to simply abandon the desire. Abandoning the desire is a kind of a battle, because internally I want to fulfill it, then only I feel satisfied. Then only the sense of I being sort of highlighted. And again, as I am fulfilling the desire, I feel certain kind of an enjoyment. So due to these different reasons, the higher tendency is to fulfill the desire. But interestingly, the practice slowly take us to a kind of a very boring state. Now, rather than fulfilling the desire by enjoying various pleasurable feelings, and again without torturing ourselves by going through kind of a self-mortification, so the Vipassana practice takes us to a very middle path, where there is no much pleasure and there is no any kind of pain, but a kind of an equanimous state of mind. And again, it is not the just mere equanimous feeling, it has come through a certain understanding. Say the investigation, the proper investigation again and again shows us none of the phenomena are permanent, none of the phenomena are sort of dependable. Say whenever you are considering different kinds of feelings, say pleasurable feelings have the nature to arise and pass away. Painful feelings also have the nature to arise and pass away. Equanimous feeling also have the nature to arise and pass away. Say different thoughts, maybe a good thought, a dispassionate thought, a renunciative thought also has the nature to arise and pass away. Kind of a desiring thoughts, lustful thought also has the nature to arise and pass away. A hateful thought also has the nature to arise and pass away. Loving kindness thought also has the nature to arise and pass away. Now, all these different phenomena are showing this universal characteristic, so everything is arising and passing away. So there is no point of expecting a lasting happiness from this kind of a very fragile phenomena. So there are again and again, as one is introduced to this reality, one starts resting in a middle. Rather than in the peaks, rather than in the ripple, so you resting on the kind of the baseline. You come to the middle. Again and again coming to the middle. Middle is kind of equanimous. It is very relaxed. It is very calm. like the middle of the ocean. In the middle of the ocean, there are no ripples. It appears very peaceful, but associating extreme depth. So likewise, as our mind is growing with wisdom through the vipassana practice, so it starts resting in this middle. It starts resting in this, say, very peaceful, very relaxed, appears like kind of boring state of mind. For this boredom, actually, we need to be a little appreciative, because now we are not agitating the mind. Now we are not triggering the mind. Rather, we are allowing the mind to settle, allowing the mind to relax, allowing the mind to calm down. So this calmness, this settled state, this relaxed state, this non-grasping state, this quenched state have to be sort of appreciated. So actually, we need to convince ourselves to appreciate it. And there are certain suttas like Parangama Sutta, where Buddha is trying to sort of explain the beauty or explain the importance of that state, and asking the followers to return to that calmness, return to that relaxation, return to that non-grasping state again and again, even though at first mind doesn't appreciate it. Mind doesn't like to stay there. You have to again and again come to that. Come back home. Just be at home. Be at the home position. Not to a agitated, triggered state, rather coming back to the relaxed state. So once you start dwelling there, appreciating that state further and further, the desirous mind, that burning mind, become more and more evident. Whenever there is a desire, and that particular desire, if in case it is captivating the mind, you feel immense amount of burning. Because now mind is getting familiar to that very clear, very calm, very quiet, fairly still, fairly pure state of mind. For that mind, it's very difficult to maintain that burning state. So then you try to minimize that burning, because you are now familiar to the sort of that calmness. You appreciate that calmness, you appreciate that relaxation, and try to dwell in that emptiness, try to dwell in that relaxation, try to dwell in that equanimity. Now that is the kind of the motivation given in the Indriya Bhavana Sutta of Majjhima Nikaya, where Buddha is promoting us, inviting us to come back to that equanimity, to return to that equanimity again and again. So on such situation, you may be fairly strengthened, or you may be fairly equipped to handle the desires. And even when the desires are happening, you may be able to recognize it at its early stage, before it comes to a very high intense state. You may be able to recognize the desire at a very low state, and then you are in a better position to let it go rather than fulfill it.
Well, thank you very much. That was extremely helpful.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to invite Nissarana for the next question.
Thero, I just want to continue with what you just said. Practice. So when you get to that, the quiet, or let's say the restful peace of mind, I guess learning from the Sutta sittings for quite a few months, for that almost a year now, from you, that's what we are supposed to do. Recently, I just did something slightly different. I just want to understand if that's okay. Because I wanted to say, because most of the time it's knowledge, right, that we get, like when we just listen and say, okay, we need to do this, this is how we live in the present moment, that's knowledge, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So for me, I wanted to see this for myself, and for that, for example, if I think about this, or this is how Bhante has taught us, or this is how Buddha's teachings is, that's because I'm thinking, right? I'm in a process where I'm not in calm waters. Let's say my mind's not calm, right? So all that is just thoughts, right? So I did it slightly different. I actually went to that the Vanaya, like I said. So I did that meditation, and I went with an intent to look at it from my viewpoint, not from knowledge, right? So I just wanted to say, how can I stay in the present moment? So that was my what do you call, I don't know what, so objective, let's say, right? So, but I did it through, first I went to the meditative state, right? I calmed my mind, I went to that place, and then with a calm mind, I looked at how can I stay as just more like let's say I'm doing a research, right? But in more of a more calm mind, I looked at how can I stay in the present moment. I know you have a lot of answers with the Sutta teachings, but this is from me to look at from myself the Buddha's teachings, how I can. So I actually experienced quite a different way of viewpoint from myself, and like that. I just want to understand: is that a way of also like sort of looking at teachings just to verify for yourself, like rather than just knowledge saying this is what we need to do, like, but do it in calm, quiet, like when your mind's at rest. Is that something encouraged or not really encouraged?
Yeah, definitely encourage. Definitely encourage, because as we already even today discussed, so once we are able to have that balanced state of mind, try to just be. Don't do anything. So you are not supposed to keep on thinking about the Dhamma. Rather, keep the mind entirely quiet as much as possible and see what happens. So because of the existing potential of the desires or potential defilements, in case again mind go and grasp, just at that moment be mindful and let it go and come back to that again, the equipoise, again that calmness. This is exactly what Buddha mentioned in the Indriya Bhavana Sutta. So basically promoting not doing anything. Promoting the resting in a way. Complete relaxation is where what being promoted, not the striving, not the kind of a very strong, strenuous kind of a practice. Rather, just be, just calm. Again and again, return to that middle, return to that baseline. Just be. Don't do anything. Just be. See what happens.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So I guess it's slightly something different. So I went to that state, but I went to the primary object of looking and understanding the viewpoint from myself, like you see what I mean? Like, rather than, so it's more, I don't know how to explain it. So rather than saying primary object of to be, right? I calmed my mind, right? So I had a primary object of seeing the Buddha's teaching at that point. Like, how can I stay in the present moment? Like more like a, let's say I just take from let's say without teachings. Let's say what we are doing in day-to-day life. So let's say I had a research paper, right? So I would learn all the theories and everything from all these papers, right? But when you're writing a research article or something, you actually might perform an experiment yourself or something, although it's already taught. Like this, if you add A plus B chemical, C is the outcome, right? Everybody has taught that. But you might just do it yourself to see it, right? Because when you see it, it's a different, I don't know, it's a different experience, right? Rather than somebody saying it. So that's what I wanted to see. So I just wanted to see at that moment, I had this objective of saying, I would look, slightly different what I said, Ramdev. That's why I asked it. So rather than to be,
I think still correct, because I actually try to analyze it somewhat compared to the Buddha's teaching. But you are free to investigate. I mean, this Dhamma is inviting us to come and see, come and investigate, and there is no harm in doing that. And I feel it's basically developing certain inner confidence. Okay, you are now developing certain confidence. So now you have certain amount of mindfulness, certain amount of clarity in the mind, and certain confidence is now growing. And so rather than depending on anything, so you want to investigate for yourself. No harm.
Okay, so that's a wonderful clarify. Thank you, Bhante. That's my questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah.
Thero Sanai.
Yeah, Thero Sanai.
Bhante, so I guess the same thing would apply when there's a state of aversion and you notice the mind wanting to run away, right, from something that it's uncomfortable with, right? Bhante, would the same exact practice apply here, or is there slightly differences in techniques and what we should observe? It's still getting back to the equanimous mind, yes?
No, it actually depends on where we are. So, I mean, various techniques are available depending on one's capacity. Actually, rather than giving a generalized answer, assume that you are still not confident. You are still, developing mindfulness and, the strength, other spiritual strengths. So, at that moment, assume that there is an angry thought of ill will arising in your mind. So one option is to develop the opposite. So loving kindness thoughts are being sort of developed. So you are abandoning the thoughts of ill will. So this is one practice. But on the other hand, another practice may be you can simply look at the thoughts of ill will. I mean, thoughts of ill will is another conditioned phenomena. You can simply look at it by decentering yourself rather than being a victim of it, rather than being sort of tangled in it. Now you can simply look at it objectively. Okay, they are merely thoughts of ill will. So you are not thoughts of ill will. I mean, you are not the owner of these thoughts. Rather, you disown them, you disclaim them, and you simply allow them to come and go, because now you are not participating in it. You are simply witnessing it. I mean, this is another stage that one can operate. It requires fair amount of caliber in a way. I mean, not an immediate practitioner would do it. He also might succeed time to time, but you can confidently do it once you learn through Kayanupassana and Vedananupassana maybe, and sort of certain amount of developed strength is required to approach this way, where you are able to step back and look at thoughts of ill will as mere thoughts of ill will. You are not a victim of it. You can simply watch it. You can simply witness it. And as a result of this practice, this simply pass away. And as you suggested, now assume now you are simply being in the emptiness and you are capable of doing that. Then the very first, second, third thoughts are arising, you may be able to trace it. Then it and this mere awareness might be sufficient enough for them to go away, because you are not recommending it, you are not trying to promote it. Rather, you prefer calmness, you prefer the purity of the mind. That is your preference, and probably there is a possibility that the thoughts arising might not stay longer in the mind, because the preference is different. The inclination of the mind is different. Your motivation is different. Your motivation is to dwell in purity, dwell in calmness, dwell in the emptiness. So likewise, as we are growing, we can use different techniques.
Thank you, Bhante. Lots of options to pick from. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. I'd like to invite Venerable Dhammosata for the next question.
Nissarana, Swamino Hansen.
Yeah, Thero Sanai.
I wanted to ask if perhaps we can discuss a little bit more about this equanimity.
Uh-huh.
For example, in the case where a yogi is practicing sensual restraint for a long time, and they are moderate in their eating, and they are committed to wakefulness, to mindfulness, all through the day and all through the night while they are still awake.
Mm-hmm.
But even though they are still doing this, practicing in this manner, they still have not entered upon that state of cessation, or say the state of realizing any of the four noble stages, starting with Sotapatti.
Mm-hmm.
So it might seem to this yogi that while they are distancing themselves from those unwholesome habits or unwholesome states of the mind that previously used to be there,
Mm-hmm.
they still have not realized that cessation. They have not come to that realization.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're just operating on equanimity.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever is there, they continuously practice observing it mindfully as states that arise and pass away.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like you mentioned, this state might feel boring. It might manifest itself as some sort of sickness, melancholy, some kind of, even I would say some kind of a depression, where the yogi says, look, I am doing all these things and my mind is not delighting in sensual pleasures and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I have not entered upon that realization that comes with reading the mind of all these sensual pleasures. And so this brings me to what I have heard or read in some places, that when a yogi comes to the middle, when a yogi becomes equanimous, even that middle, that yogi should give it up.
Mm-hmm.
So can we discuss a little bit about this giving up of the middle, so that the yogi is not on this extreme or the other extreme, they're right in the middle, but now that middle also giving it up. What is this concept of giving up the middle about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very interesting question. Now here I feel the middle can be explained in many different ways. Now this is the theme explained in the Majjhima Sutta, where two extremes and the middle. So what are the two extremes that you need to give up? And again, what is the middle that you need to sort of be free using the wisdom? Ubho ante viditvana majje manta nalippati. So you are not attaching, you are not grasping even to the middle by means of the wisdom. So 6 definitions were given. So not just one, 6 explanations were given. So one explanation is that with respect to the time, say past and the future are the two extremes, and you are able to give up past and the future. Now you come to the present moment, but present moment also is not something to grasp, and using the wisdom now you are able to keep the mind entirely free, not grasping even the middle, that is the present moment. So that is one explanation. Another explanation is where, say, pleasurable feelings are one extreme, and then the painful feelings are the other. Equanimous feelings are the middle. So you give up pleasurable feelings, you give up painful feelings, and now most of the time mind is coming to the middle, that is the equanimity. And this equanimity also is not something that you are grasping, rather you simply relax there, not with a kind of a desire there. So I think we get closer to your question through this explanation, that equanimity is there, but that equanimity is also not something to grasp. It is also not something to sort of to adhere. Rather, it's a birthright of the mind. It's simply a dwelling state of the mind. You are not supposed to do anything to maintain this equanimity, because sometimes we have the tendency to always do something. We think, okay, we have to do something in order to get something. But here it is very much like you are not doing anything, As a result of that, naturally mind stays there. I feel that is why it is called we are getting closer to the unconditioned. Because we are constantly conditioning the mind. We are constantly conditioning by doing things. But here, we are keep on unconditioned the mind. We keep on allow the mind to settle on its own by not doing anything. So that is why the term atammeta come into the picture. So till we are doing something, till we are coloring the mind, till we are conditioning the mind, we haven't reached the atammeta. On the other hand, when we are stopping the doing part, when we completely take our hand away, slowly mind settles by itself. Not because we do anything, but that is as a kind of a cause of fact, as a dhammata. Mind simply settles by itself, and very much like we don't need to do anything for that to happen. It is not that we willfully, intentionally take the mind to the equanimity. Rather, mind naturally settles in the equanimity without our participation.
Sad.
Do you agree, Osada?
Swaminatha, what's that?
Do you agree with the answer, or is there any another alternative that you would like to add?
No. I do agree. I followed your explanation and quite clear at this time.
Okay. Anyway, these things are very interesting questions, and we need to experiment these things and don't just accept, just further experiment. And these are very subtle points also, as one is continuing one's path and get into a very subtle state of the mind. So how we are sort of tackling it, how we are slowly keeping our hand away and allow the mind to naturally settle. So it's basically removing the sense of I also, because whenever the I is there, sense of I is there, I want to do something. That self want to do something. I want to participate. But on the other hand, when we are realizing, okay, it's better to let go, better to surrender, better things allow things to happen as their own accord. So that is in a way we are reducing our sense of I, the self view, and let Dhamma to operate, let Dhamma to take over, something like that.
Right, and so Hanse, now that you mentioned one should not just accept these things, one has to investigate for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I also just wanted to add now that I think this investigating, I value it so much because in the past I have just been going by advice. You know, you go for Kamatan,
mm-hmm.
and you report this, and you're told, okay, then do this and do this.
Mm-hmm.
Or even if you're not given direct practical instructions, the teacher explains to you some concept of the Dhamma, that usually it is like this,
mm-hmm.
and then now you're told to try to apply that.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think that no matter how much you're told to, that this is how it is, this is the Dhamma, this is how it was taught, no matter how much you listen to advice,
mm-hmm.
it is not useful if you don't investigate and actually realize it for oneself.
Mm-hmm.
So the Dhamma is full of, I would say that the Dhamma is full of many concepts.
Mm-hmm.
To do this, to do that, there are different ways of seeing things. But all of those, if one does not actually see it for themselves,
mm-hmm.
then these concepts, they just remain concepts, and they don't mature into wisdom.
Correct.
They don't mature into personal experience.
Exactly.
And if they don't mature into personal experience, then that is not Dhamma for you.
Correct.
There's no realization there for you.
Correct. Yes. Fully agreed.
Yeah, so I'm quite happy that you reminded us to, do that investigation and not just accept it at face value.
Definitely, yes. Definitely, yes. Because that's why ehi passiko pachattang meditabbo vinyohi. I mean, we can see, how profound it is in a way. These kind of statements by the Buddha say, ehi passiko, you come and see, put it into the practice and see for yourself. And then Buddha again mentioned, pachattang meditabbo vinyohi. So the wise person has to realize by himself. Don't just believe me. Now even Buddha categorically mentioned, don't just believe me. Dhamma is there. This is the path. Practice it and investigate for yourself and just go through. So you can see how mature the Dhamma in that sense, and again how Buddha is sort of in a way confident enough to tell that. Now he has such a confidence in the Dhamma, and he say, okay, you don't need to simply even believe me. This is Dhamma, and you just practice it and see. So what a kind of a confidence that the teacher has to have to tell us like that. So Buddha has that capacity. Okay, Dhamma is such a capable sort of a teaching, and you just put it practice. I can guarantee that it will do the job. You don't need my help, something like that. Very interesting.
Right. All right, that's all I have for now. Swaminathan, Thero
Okay, yeah, Thero Sannai.
All right, thank you, Bhante. I believe that's all of the questions for tonight.
Okay, then we can wind up the session, and I take this opportunity to wish you all the best for the coming new year, and have a peaceful new year. And today also we were able to spend fair amount of time practicing, listening to the Dhamma as well as discussing Dhamma, and all the merits what we have accumulated we share with all the passed away relatives, all with the celestial beings and whoever in need of merits. And we wish these merits help us also to understand the Buddha's teaching and to practice it to the best of our ability. We'll use the traditional verses. Ettavatacha amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhiya. Ettavatacha amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhiya. Ettavatacha amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhiya. Akasattha ca bummatta deva naga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva cirang rakkantu sasanang cirang rakkantu desanang cirang rakkantu mamparang. Idang vo nyati nang hotu sukita huntu nyatayo. Idang vo nyati nang hotu sukita huntu nyatayo. Idang vo nyati nang hotu sukita huntu nyatayo. Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.